Level 1, the sentence. You stand in a room where the air feels heavier than normal, and every word being spoken sounds sharper than anything you've ever heard before. When the final sentence is delivered, it doesn't hit you all at once, but instead settles slowly, like something sinking deep into your chest. Hands grip your arms as you're turned away, and the world behind you continues moving as if nothing important just happened. You try to look back, to hold on to one last familiar detail, but the door closes before you can take it in. In that moment, you realize something simple but terrifying. Your life outside has already ended. The ride is silent in a way that feels intentional, like even sound isn't allowed to interfere with what's happening. No one speaks to you, and you don't ask anything, because deep down you already understand that answers don't exist anymore. One metal door opens, then another, each one louder than the last, each one pulling you further away from who you used to be. By the time you reach the cell, the silence around you feels alive, like it's something you're going to have to live with now. Level 2, the cell. You wake up without knowing what time it is, and after a while you stop trying to figure it out because it doesn't change anything. The routine begins forming around you slowly, not because you accept it, but because there's nothing else to replace it. Meals arrive through a small slot in the door, always the same, always without a word, as if communication itself has been removed from your world. At first, you try to speak anyway, even if it's just a simple question, but the silence on the other side teaches you quickly that your voice doesn't matter here. Days blend together until they stop feeling like separate moments, turning instead into one long stretch of time that never fully resets. You begin counting things just to hold on to some sense of movement, steps across the cell, breaths between sounds, seconds between footsteps outside. At night, everything becomes louder in a different way, not because of noise, but because your thoughts have nowhere left to go. Memories you tried to ignore start resurfacing, clearer and sharper than before, forcing you to sit with them longer than you ever wanted to. That's when you realize the punishment isn't just the end waiting for you, it's everything happening before it. Level 3, the waiting. Waiting here doesn't feel passive. It feels like something that slowly wears you down piece by piece without ever stopping. Every time footsteps echo in the hallway, your attention locks onto them instantly, even when they're not meant for you. Sometimes they slow near your door just enough to make your chest tighten before continuing forward like nothing happened. Other times, another door opens somewhere nearby, followed by quiet voices and then silence that feels heavier than before. No one explains what happens next, but you don't need them to, because your mind fills in the gaps on its own. Sleep becomes inconsistent, not because you can't rest, but because your mind refuses to fully shut down anymore. Your thoughts move constantly, replaying every decision that led you here, searching for a moment where things could have changed. But no matter how many times you go over it, the outcome stays the same, and that realization settles deeper each time. Eventually, you stop searching for different endings, because this is the only one left. Level 4, the routine. Over time, the waiting begins to shape itself into something structured, something predictable enough to follow without thinking. You wake up, eat, sit, walk, and repeat. Not because you want to, but because routine makes the time feel slightly more manageable. Breaking that routine, even in small ways, makes everything feel heavier, like the system itself pushes back against it. You start noticing patterns in the guards and the environment, small details that didn't matter before but now feel important. One guard pauses longer than necessary. Another avoids eye contact completely, and those differences become something you focus on. You test your control in small ways, delaying movement or holding eye contact just a second longer than expected. Sometimes it gets a reaction, sometimes it doesn't, but either way, it reminds you that you still have some level of choice left. Those small moments become important, because they're the only things that still feel like they belong to you. And slowly, control becomes something you hold on to tightly, even when it barely exists. Level 5, the appeal. Hope enters your world quietly. almost like it doesn't fully belong there, carried through a letter or a brief conversation. You read the same lines over and over again, searching for certainty in words that don't actually promise anything. The idea that things might change becomes something you hold on to, even though you don't fully trust it. Time starts feeling different again, moving faster in your thoughts but slower in reality, stretching every moment in between. You begin imagining outcomes, different versions of your future where everything stops before it reaches the end. For a short time, those possibilities feel real enough to believe in. But as days pass without updates, that feeling starts to fade, replaced by the same silence you've already learned to live with. Hope doesn't disappear completely, but it changes into something heavier, something that feels more like waiting than escape. And slowly you understand that even hope has limits here. Level 6, the date. The date arrives without warning, delivered in a calm tone that makes it feel more final than anything else so far. You hear it clearly, process it immediately, and yet it still takes time to fully settle into your mind. There's no reaction that changes anything, so you simply nod, even though everything inside you shifts at once. Time becomes sharper after that, no longer blending together but moving forward in a way you can't ignore anymore. Every hour feels more defined, every moment more noticeable, as if your awareness has suddenly increased. You begin noticing details that didn't matter before, like the texture of the walls or the rhythm of your own breathing. Sleep becomes difficult, not because of fear alone, but because your mind refuses to waste any remaining time. There's no more uncertainty now, just a clear endpoint that keeps getting closer with every passing moment. For the first time in a long while, time feels real again, because it's running out. Level 7, the final hours. Everything around you continues as normal, but inside, something begins to slow down in a way you didn't expect. You're moved through hallways you've never seen before, even though they were always part of this place. Each step feels controlled, deliberate, like there's no room left for anything unplanned. The way people speak to you changes, becoming softer and more careful, as if words suddenly carry more weight now. You start noticing small details more clearly, like the sound of doors or the temperature of the air around you. Time stretches in strange ways, where minutes feel longer but also pass faster than you can fully process. Your thoughts don't race anymore. Instead, they come and go in fragments, without order or direction. Memories appear briefly and disappear just as quickly, leaving behind a feeling you can't fully describe. And somewhere in those final hours, you realize something simple. There's no more waiting left. Level 8, the end. The final room feels smaller than you imagined, not in size, but in how it holds everything that led you here. There are no more possibilities now, no more alternate paths, just a single direction that doesn't change. You become aware of every detail around you, sharper than ever before, as if your mind is trying to hold on to something. The silence feels different here, not empty but complete, like everything has already been decided. Your thoughts slow down, not because there's nothing left to think about, but because there's nothing left to change. For a moment, everything feels completely still, like time itself has paused just long enough for you to understand. And in that stillness, one realization settles deeper than anything else. It was never just about the end. It was about every step that brought you here. Because in the end, you don't just face what's coming. You face everything that led you to it.